Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. So, I know what you're wondering. This is Reviews Without Remorse. And how are we going to do this without dishonoring Dave's memory? Well, I'll tell you how. We're not. As Scoutmaster Kevin used to say, there's a first time for everything, son. And this is episode number 191, and in this episode, Kyle, Ray, and myself will discuss the trailers for James Gunn's Superman and Fantastic Four First Steps, and we'll also throw out our favorite most quotable movies. And then, it's time to make the f***ing chimichangas, as we discuss 2024's Deadpool and Wolverine. Maximum effort. Gentlemen, how is it going?
Oh, it's going. Nice to be back.
It's something. I'm excited. Let's get going.
What happens when the most powerful man on Earth decides he's above us all? What happens when a god refuses to be bound by humanity? Believe me, even gods can fall.
All right, the Superman trailer is out, and we just saw I don't know if you guys were watching the Super Bowl, but I must have seen that trailer again, or a version of the trailer, half a dozen times throughout the day because it was going on throughout the Puppy Bowl, which was playing in my house for most of the day. What'd you guys think of Superman?
This one has me excited. They haven't gotten Superman right for a while. There's always been something a little bit off about how they've brought Superman to the big screen really since the late 70s. So this one, I have high hopes for it because it looks like they have the tone of Superman right. So that has me excited.
I'm excited as well. Puppy Bowl. Awesome. My kids are all about it. 2:00. It was amazing. But yeah, I mean, they're bringing back all the old school flavor from the cereals and everything. The whistle,
Crypto.
Yeah, we're talking about Puppy Bowl. Have to talk about Crypto. It's old school and with a new school feel. Not too excited about the broccoli haircut, but it is what it is. But yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I kind of feel like, well, first off, my first instinct says, it's James Gunn, and this guy has done some pretty great work,
sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy, and he even resurrected Suicide Squad into something that was actually watchable from its that's very humble beginnings on that one. So yeah. So I'm fascinated by it because I'm like, wow, this is kind of ballsy, because I almost feel like when the DCEU tried to sort of start itself off and it started from the Man of Steel, I remember feeling like that was sort of a decision I almost felt like the Man of Steel was already long done, and they're like, oh, we gotta catch up with the Avengers. What have we got so far? Oh, the Man of Steel was pretty good. Why don't we call that the first one?
Right.
And I kind of felt like that was a wonky way to get going, and I feel like they never really got their footing. This one, you could tell we're just jumping right into like the Super Friends. This is going to be a cinematic universe. There's a whole other bunch of superheroes that are in here, super villains. Like you said, Crypto. I mean, when you saw Crypto, you're like, oh, we're really going for this. This is
absolutely.
We are really doing. I mean, I remember there was like the Saturday, there was like afternoon cartoons that were superhero cartoons that not quite the Super Friends. They were like these other kind of little lower budgety cartoons. But I remember they had like Superboy, they had Crypto and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, okay, we're going there. So yeah, it looks pretty fascinating. And I'm there's a part of me that wants to use the term morbid curiosity, because I feel like this could be a train wreck too, but it'll be a fascinating train wreck. But yeah, I really hope they get this right, because I agree with you. I've been telling friends for years, friends who are like Batman fans, I said, you guys, if you're a Batman fan, you got nothing to complain about, because Batman has done nothing but start off pretty well and get better and better and better. Superman, not so much. There's been a lot of stumbling when it comes to Superman. So I really have my fingers crossed that this thing works.
I think if anybody can handle Crypto and the Super Friends and those types of characters, it's James Gunn. He'll just make Crypto this universe's Rocket Raccoon. I think that he's got the sense of humor to make this enjoyable and without it making seem too lame.
Oh, 100%. And I also think he has the balls to do things that other directors don't do. So if he's going to make a more serious tone with this, I'm all for it too.
I agree with that too. I think balls is a good way to say it, because I think, again, it's frustrating when you watch comic book movies that don't seem to want to go all in on being a comic book movie. This one does. This one is absolutely saying, yeah, we are taking this comic book stories and we're going to make a film out of it. So yeah, I think it does have the potential to be pretty wild.
Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week. Sunday at 7, on the dot, no matter what. We're all here.
And similarly, we had Fantastic Four First Steps. What'd you guys think?
Flame on!
Never been a big Fantastic Four fan, but I was digging the vibe of the trailer. Kind of retro feel, great cast.
Yeah, that's my feelings also. Talk about a property that they've never gotten right on film. I mean, at least Superman has one or two classics. Fantastic Four, it's just been one miss after another. This one, because of the period piece setting, because of the jet age aesthetic, they're going in a different direction, and they seem to be making it an overt comic book movie as opposed to a movie about regular people who become superheroes. This one is a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, and I think that that's going to benefit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I had the same vibe too. I was saying to myself, I was very excited that they were going with a retro, like 60s era style, 50s, 60s style, setting. So I thought that was pretty cool. I remember thinking for a long time that that's what they should do with this property. But I did sort of watch the trailer and I felt this way for Superman too. I didn't really say it, but I felt similarly here. Like maybe the film's not quite done enough yet, that it just gave us a couple glimmers of what to expect, but it didn't really tell us a whole story. So it was hard to see where this was going to go. I don't know if I'm totally sold by Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards.
Oh, they're just putting him in everything now.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he's just kind of the it guy now. So we're going to put him in stuff. But The Thing, boy, they got him spot on this time, didn't they?
Right. Pedro Pascal is Pedro Pascal the way that Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We'll see how he does. So,
but it does have a good look. Again, the trailer was a tiny bit odd. Like they spent a lot of time with Ben Grimm cooking dinner with, and I thought Herbie, I feel like in this one, Herbie is sort of like the Crypto of this one. It was almost like, oh, wow, they went there. They went with Herbie. Okay, that's kind of cool.
It's just nice to have a couple of movies to get excited about, because it's been a while since a trailer has really captured my imagination, and both of these have me intrigued to see the films.
It is funny how they both have similar vibes too. Like they
really do.
They are kind of going for it in a lot of ways, doing a lot of really different comic booky sort of elements that you might not have normally expected.
Time will tell.
I told you, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome anywhere. Now get the fuck out of my bar.
Just give me one more drink and then I'll leave.
Hi, Peanut. I'm gonna need you to come with me right now.
Look, lady, I'm not interested.
All right, well, I'm sort of on the tick-tick, so upsy daisy. Here we go. Oh, whiskey dick of the claws. It's quite common in Wolverines over 40.
You don't want this.
Unless you want to take a deep breath through your fucking forehead, I suggest you reconsider.
Deadpool's peaceful existence comes crashing down when the Time Variance Authority recruits him to help safeguard the multiverse. He soon unites with a variant of his would-be pal Wolverine to save his universe from extinction. Written by Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, Zeb Wells, and Sean Levy, based on characters created by Rob Liefeld, Fabian Nicieza, Len Wein, John Romita Sr., Herb Trimpe, Roy Thomas, Joe Simon, Jack Kirby, and Frank Miller. Directed by Sean Levy. 2024's Deadpool and Wolverine. Gentlemen, preliminary thoughts.
You start this one, Ray.
Oh, man. So this is number 3 for the Deadpool series. I wanted to like it more than I actually did. It was still fun, still action-packed. I got lost in the story. There was so much going on, just rapid fire the whole time. There were a lot of places, a lot of parts of the movie that I enjoyed a lot. The jokes, in particular, with some throwbacks. I'm not that keen on all the Deadpool lore, so I was watching it just from a spectator's point of view. The cameos I thought were hysterical, even though I didn't understand half of them. There was a lot of cool stuff there. I just didn't dig it as much as I did the first one, more so than the second. But man, it was still good, but I think it was a miss for me.
Interesting.
I'm going to jump on that comment a little bit,
Sure.
maybe be a little bit more gentle, but kind of pick up on a thought that you have. There's an inherent problem with comedy sequels, especially a movie like this, or if you look at like the Austin Powers series. The first one is a classic. The second one is great. By the time the third one comes around, you're starting to stretch the premise a little thin, and how much longer will that shtick hold up? How much longer will the same jokes and the same tone be funny before we get tired of it?
I get that.
Will the jokes still land over time? Deadpool has the benefit of there being kind of long gaps in between the movies, so it gives a little bit more time to work on the humor, and we don't get tired of it because we're not bombarded with it all at once. But it's also very of the moment. So will the jokes that Deadpool makes about what was going on in Hollywood in 2003 be as funny 5-10 years from now as they are when this movie came out?
Right. Absolutely, yeah. You could totally say, I mean, everything is in the moment with the jokes, and eventually it's just going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, I can't argue with that part. I'm kind of shocked. I thought for sure everyone was going to nerdgasm over this movie, and I was going to be the stick in the mud who was going to be, the guy to sort of poke holes at certain things. But I'm with you there in the things you're saying, because I remember in the first few frames of this, I was, I'm very excited. First off, I feel that the Deadpool series is probably similar to like Guardians in terms of, I don't think they ever dropped the ball. I mean, it's been pretty consistent and solid. And if you like the first one, you should definitely like the third one. But I agree with you, particularly in just how meta can it get before you just, it's almost to the point where you're kind of now, like, it was one thing when you sort of straddled the fence, in the first one, it was like, oh, wow, he's breaking the fourth wall. He's doing a lot of things but the story seemed to exist. It seemed that the story was able to exist on its own and break the fourth wall a lot. And it still sort of worked. But here it's like, I mean, at this point, every other, I feel like it was more meta than not. Like, it was like every comment, every joke was about welcome to the Marvel universe, get ready for that good MCU money, that kind of stuff. How are we going to bring Logan back into the story after we killed him off? I mean, it was literally completely meta, where it was like, it went from taking a break to break the fourth wall to, stopping for a second, a break, and pretending that there's an actual story going on. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was that. And again, at this point, we've already done the alternate universes, timelines, all that stuff. It's been done to death. They're joking that it's been done to death. They're making jokes that it's, this stuff doesn't work anymore. But, hey, we got one last chance to get a team up with Deadpool and Wolverine, and we're sure as shit gonna take it. We're making this sucker happen. So yeah, but with all that said, honestly, I rewatched it just yesterday to do the review. I gotta say, I was shocked just how much I was enjoying it. Like not shocked, but this is probably the first time I sat and watched it from beginning to end since it came out. And as much as I enjoyed the hell out of it the first time I saw it, I was enjoying every bit of it again. And there's honestly I didn't find a boring part in all of it. Like there was always something to look at. There was always really good cameos. There was something, whatever they happened to be doing was working for me. And yeah, I mean, there was never a part that I wanted to kind of fast forward through to get to the next thing or anything. I mean, I thought it was all really good. And it is kind of just a nerdgasm kind of movie. So, I really did enjoy the hell out of it. Now, with that said, it's taking, there's a word I'm looking for, but it's like, again, once you just get so totally meta that you're just kind of, the whole thing is one long inside joke with the audience. It's not cinematic, it's not a masterpiece by any stretch, but
well, because it relies on knowledge that it assumes you have. And if you watch this movie in a vacuum, you're not going to appreciate a lot of the humor than if you did know some of the things that it's poking fun at.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was saying too. Is like, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I thoroughly did. It was a great movie. It was fun, exciting. The action sequences were awesome. But in retrospect, looking after watching it, I'm just like, man, that's just kind of been used and abused at this point.
And full disclosure, I'm completely over the whole MCU. I'm tired of it. And a lot of the things that I'm tired of are the multiverses and the fact that I need to do homework in order to watch a movie. Yeah. In order to enjoy a movie, you have to see 2 other movies and 3 TV series. This at least makes fun of that. And I really appreciate how it's this is a Marvel movie for people like me who are kind of tired of Marvel movies. And it's picking up on a lot of the things that have worn me out of that universe. And it's saying like, we get it. We understand. We see it. Here's why it's funny. Here's why you're going to enjoy this movie. And I did. I do like this movie. I love the X-Men films. So it's always great to see Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. I think that my favorite part of the entire movie was just the montage of cameos for the different Deadpool universes. That was just hysterical. So you had like Henry Cavill.
Yeah,
that's a great moment.
Yeah. Reloading his arms as Wolverine. That was just amazing.
That's a great moment.
Matthew McConaughey. That was excellent as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, I forgot about that one. All right.
Blake Lively.
Yep. Yeah. No, all of that was spectacular. I mean, the part when he goes through the different universes and sees the different Wolverines. Honestly, when he's like, all right, we got John Byrne, classic, brown and yellow. Hey, didn't you fight the Hulk in this one? I mean, that was just great. And then he just turns around. I'm Marvel Jesus, you dull creature. like I feel like, I mean, with stuff like that, it was like every line in this movie I'm laughing at. Like, I mean, that was the thing too. I was shocked at how much chuckling and laughing I'm doing, at all these lines that I feel like I agree. I felt like it should have been really worn out at this point, but I was still kind of chuckling away at it. And again, this is not a I totally agree with what you said about comedies, how they really wear thin. Comedy sequels don't really work, and I completely agree. Once that freshness is gone, I'm just not laughing anymore. But I feel like these movies have always been just this kind of, not a grand slam, but a ground rule double where you just keep me chuckling throughout the whole thing. I mean, I'm good with that. There's some movies that if I laugh once, it's impressive, whatever. But this one, it was like just a steady stream of chuckles and laughs throughout the whole thing.
Well, again, I think it helps that it's been a while since Deadpool 2, so we haven't seen this character for a while. We haven't heard this type of humor for a little while, so we do have the benefit of time. And I feel that since we've only seen this movie 2, maybe 3 times each at the most, that it still feels really fresh and really funny. My concern is, will this hold up forever? I'm not so sure it will, but I had a really good time both times watching this movie.
I liked it too, but on the same note, like the second one introduced an iconic character like Cable. I mean, for me, this one, I mean, you brought in Gambit, like my favorite X-Men.
It's about time.
With the cards, awesome. Yeah. Channing Tatum as Gambit just nailed the part. but I was just lost. I'm like, you brought in Elektra, really? Oh, I mean, sorry, Jesus.
See,
And
I didn't mind that. I kind of thought that was like the Bad News Bears. Like that was like the roster of the superheroes who are never going to get, anything resembling their own film, much less like I almost felt like this was sort of where you squeeze in those D-list players, sort of. It was kind of like the perfect.
You are not saying that Wesley Snipes' Blade is D-list. Come on, Joe.
Well, I'm saying that he's not. They were all people again in that Fox universe that are probably otherwise would have hit the dustbin of yesteryear. So I was kind of happy to see that they kind of got a little bit of their due, sort of, at least one last time.
Especially with the giant remains of what was once 20th Century Fox behind them for the big epic battle.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of that.
And that also does kind of go to what I was saying before about just like how meta can we possibly get? I mean, this thing was just straight up. It's like, I mean, to say that they're winking at the audience that's not even close to what I'm trying. The whole thing is one giant wink. It never stops winking for 5 minutes. And it's incidentally kind of a total random side note, but this is also coming from a guy. See, when Marvel got the rights back to the Fantastic Four and to the X-Men, when they acquired Fox, see, I remember being kind of excited because this is sort of before Marvel shit the bed so mightily as they've done. When they were still on top of their game, I was really excited to see what the Marvel X-Men would look like. I really thought they were going to take this opportunity to reboot that series and make it their own. I thought that's how this was going to play out. So when you started seeing like Charles Xavier shows up in Doctor Strange, and then it's like, oh, so we're doing that. We're going to try to weasel them in through the side door, kind of. So I wasn't really thrilled with that whole thing. But with that said, I did feel like, I don't know if you guys ever saw, remember the How It Should Have Ended?
Oh, yeah.
At the end of Logan?
It's you sexy, scruffy man. Excuse me, little girl. Live! Queer! Oh, thank God. That was a close one.
What happened?
We almost lost you there, big guy. I can't let you go dying on me. We're just getting started. Here, I brought you your tights and everything.
Oh,
Now you're getting it. Come on. Let's go rub our butts on some glass.
Deadpool shows up and jolts him back to life and says, man, I thought I almost lost you, man. We got to make our own movie. And it was like, it was so, so telling now in retrospect, that's quite literally exactly what sort of happened, They just basically just figured out a way to jolt him back to life so they could do a Deadpool crossover, which kind of almost begged to be made in some ways.
I'm about to lose everything that I've ever cared about.
not my fucking problem.
Is that what you said when your world went to shit?
Come again.
This Wolverine let down his entire world.
And they're treading on very dodgy ground because Logan was so good that you don't want to undo how good that movie was and what a fitting set-off that was for the Wolverine character. So if you're going to bring him back, you have to be really careful in how you do it, and this did it right. I mean, it did it by paying full respect to the character, but bringing him back in a more humorous existence. I think that was particularly well done. I can still watch Logan and enjoy it and feel the impact of Wolverine's sacrifice and death, and then watch this immediately afterwards and have a good time and have a good laugh.
100%. I could have said it better, Kyle.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, I totally agree. And this was, if you were going to try to bring him back some way, I mean, this was kind of the only way you could do it, that you could. And I'll tell you this too, what I also liked about this was that despite the fact that the whole movie is one long, dick and fart joke, it still managed to have some heart because you did still feel like when you got into the sort of like when she kind of gets into Wolverine's brain, and you can see like he really was carrying a whole lot of baggage because all the X-Men got killed, and he was such, you know, he didn't rise to the occasion. He was kind of a loser or something or other. I mean, you really sort of felt it. So you still get that kind of redemption arc. You know, you get that sense of he was a flawed character and he managed to redeem himself in this. So, and I kind of feel like Deadpool did too, sort of, which, you know, and again, that's tough to do when you're on your third movie. Like, how are you going to do like a character arc? You know, like as we've seen, like in James Bond, like they do a character arc in Casino, and then they try to stretch it out over the next couple of movies. And it's like, guys, you know, you can't just do the same shtick over and over. You gotta, but somehow like Deadpool managed to sort of get a story arc in this, you know, where he wants to sort of be somebody who's contributing. And then by the end, he kind of is.
Well, and again, part of how they're able to do that is taking advantage of the gap between the most recent Deadpool. I mean, it has been, what, 7-8 years since Deadpool 2, so they had a lot of time to advance the character in terms of the narrative.
Was it that long? I guess it was, yeah.
It's been a while.
I'm still waiting for the Blind Owl story arc.
I know it was before COVID when that movie came out, so it's been a couple of years.
Want to talk about what's haunting you, or should we wait for a third act flashback?
Go fuck yourself.
So what was your favorite Deadpool cameo throwback from the comics? I'll admit I'm not too hot on the actual comics. I don't think I've ever read an actual Deadpool comic. I appreciate the character and like the movies and all, but...
Oh, I got a kick out of Nice Pool.
Nice Pool, yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I did love the... somebody called him Van Wilder. He's like, you know, I could do that too. And he looks at the camera and he goes, the proposal or whatever. And the guy's like, is that what you think I do?
And those types of things, I mean, I know I complained about, well, not complained, but I did criticize a little bit how much of that will hold up and how much knowledge you have to have going into it to appreciate it. But when you do appreciate the joke, when you get it, boy, is it rewarding.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. No, that's exactly right. And honestly, I totally agree with you. You know, sometimes the inside jokes can be a little much, even for guys who, again, who are diehard movie guys, cinephiles like we are. So we get most of it, but it almost leaves you sort of scratching your head, going, but what do other people get out of this then? You know. But yeah, no, but as far as my favorite cameos, I mean, honestly, I really did enjoy the hell out of all of them. I thought the whole interview with him and Happy Hogan, you know, was hysterical. You know, both of those guys are playing. I mean, it was so great too, because, you know, he does the Deadpool character so well. Jon Favreau does Happy so well at this point. You know, they don't even have to. They just, the two dynamics work perfectly. Like at no point did anybody have to sort of bend their character to you know, incorporate the story, etc. You know, that I thought that was a lot of fun. But yeah, the bigger ones, I thought when Elektra and Blade and all these, I mean, when they all showed up, I was like, what? So yeah, I got a kick out of all of that. And I mean, obviously the girl from Logan, when she showed up, you know, of course. I was like, oh, are they really going to do that? And I was like, yeah, all right, I like it. And, you know, she's a little older now. So she's talking to him about stuff. He's, you know, the Logan that I knew was a hero. He saved my life and all this other stuff. And he gave me a whatever. And it was like, wow, this is really kind of working. I'm shocked that it does, but I don't know, maybe I'm an easy lay on some of these things. But yeah, it was good stuff.
Well, I think when she appears, that gives the story a little bit more of an emotional arc, as opposed to just the constant back and forth bickering and joking. Now there are stakes, and now there's a legacy for Wolverine to uphold, and now he has a chance to redeem that iteration of himself, and he does.
How come nobody said Chris Evans as Johnny Storm?
That's true. We have to talk about that.
I remember saying I'm like, oh, I see where this is going before, but like, and it was played well because in this world, that's who Deadpool would have saw. That's who he would have been. But I kind of saw that one coming. So, but I liked it nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely.
people younger than us probably didn't see the Fantastic Four movies with Chris Evans in them. So that
Did
probably
anybody see the Fantastic Four?
I have to say, I went and saw those films when they came out because I was a high school kid with money to burn on PG-13 films. So I was seeing them all back then.
Yeah, can you believe I actually never saw any of the Fantastic Four movies? I don't think I've actually sat through I think I sat through the most recent one that everyone knew was a debacle, and I just wanted to see it because I wanted to see what this train wreck was all about.
That one I think I was smart enough to avoid.
I think I saw the one that Jessica Alba was in just because it was her.
Those are the two with Chris Evans.
Yeah.
They're not good. Don't go out of your way to watch them.
Yep. But she's in it, so that's all that
Fair.
matters. So, Joe, you sent me a clip before we were actually going to start recording this, and it made all the difference in the world. The big battle scene, with or without.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Wolverine's
yeah.
cowl.
Yeah. That was,
so good.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when I saw this in the theater for the first time, I swear I must have spent a week afterwards watching just all the people who posted clips, like these little bootleg clips of that one scene where you had Madonna playing in the background and he pulls the cowl over. I must have watched that like 100 times because that was just so cool. And I remember thinking, like, I think like everybody in the world. Well, first off, I love the scene where he first finds him in the bar and he knocks him out cold or whatever, and then he goes, "Wait a minute, what are these pajamas or whatever?" And he's like, "That only took us 20 years."
That's
whatever.
a great moment.
You know? And then so by the time he pulls the cowl over, I'm like, that is, I mean, again, could you imagine that they didn't do that for 20 years because they were embarrassed of doing it? Or just, I mean, maybe back then you could not have pulled it off. Like, I don't like this when he actually does that. That's partially like, so he's doing something for real, but that's also like CGI to make the effect work so well. You know what I mean? So I don't think they could have done it quite as well back then. Fair enough. But still, I mean, once you finally saw him put the cowl on, it was like, holy cow, that was just genius. How did we go this long without that?
Well, I think we are now in an age where comic book movies don't have to be ashamed of being comic book movies. They're taken a little bit more seriously critically, whether that started with The Dark Knight or the MCU or even some of the better X-Men films. But back in the early 2000s, comic book movies were kind of like, oh no, we're taking it seriously. We're not going to do any of that gimmicky stuff. Now they have free reign to do whatever they want. And if it's going to be putting on a cowl and yellow spandex, they're going for it. And they should. It's more fun.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we want the gimmicky stuff at this point.
Absolutely, we do.
I'm not saying we're tired of the seriousness because of all the dramas that we got from like The Dark Knight and everything. But at the same time, like, bring us back to our youth. What was actually in the pages of the comic books we read? Like, bring that to life. That's what I want to see at this point.
Yeah. My ex-partner used to frequently call me the costume commander.
That's right.
Because
you must have gone crazy for this.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it was, and honestly, I will say, in fairness, I think that back in the day, it was hard. You didn't have I mean, there's a reason why Adam West's Batman looks so much different than, say, Ben Affleck's Batman. I mean, the technology in putting those sort of costumes together just didn't exist back then. So, I mean, I think a lot of people just felt like either you're doing spandex or you're just not going to do it. So, you know, I think had they even tried if the very first X-Men movie, if they tried to do the Wolverine outfit, it probably would have been pretty bad. But now we live in an era where they can do it. To your point, I just love when they get the costumes right and they make them look comic accurate, and it's just, you're bringing those pages to life, and it's like, oh my God, thank you. Like, this is what we've been clamoring for decades.
Life is a mystery.
I don't know anything about saving worlds, but you do.
Trust me, kid, I'm no hero.
You were an X-Man. You were the X-Man. soaking wet right now.
This movie's not exactly in depth. We're not exactly.
No, there's not a lot. There's not a lot that we have to analyze.
Yeah.
I actually do have one little critique. The runtime is a little long for a comedy, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before with how far can you stretch the premise. Comedy movies are usually pretty brief. They're 90, 100 minutes. Very few of them are much more than 2 hours. So this one being well over 2 hours did start to drag a little bit because there's only so much of that shticky humor that you can take before, okay, I've heard this joke now for going on 2 hours. I'm ready to see a conclusion.
See, that's interesting because I didn't notice that at all because I'm looking at this movie that it's a superhero movie with jokes in it. Not that it's a comedy with superheroes in it. But to your point, I mean, the comedy element is so present. I mean, there's not 3 seconds doesn't go by without a joke. So to your point, I mean, if I had to sort of pick one, it is basically a comedy. But I think by the time you start to zero in on the, once that you were starting to reach the climax and you were starting to get like really good action scenes and then, the resolution down in the subway station and stuff, I guess I wasn't really thinking of it as a comedy at that point, but your point is fair. I mean, it is probably, it does kind of wear a little thin if it, at that length, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was lost in between laughter and watching the action sequences, and then in the middle of like the tears in my eyes from laughing, look at my watch. I'm like, oh my god, I got to go to bed soon. I have work in the morning. It was that kind of thing. But some of the humor did start to run dry at some point. But I'm like, Jesus, I do need to go to bed. It did have a long run time, but it not if you're not paying attention to it. I would say.
I was not bored. I just found that for a comedy, this movie was on the longer side. What do we think of the plot as it is?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
you're right.
To talk about.
No, there really isn't. And honestly, I kind of feel like they really did just sort of throw out a lot of gobbledygook to put these two together for some reason and make a story where they have to accomplish a thing, In fact, I will say I was sort of into it just fine. I mean, this is not a major criticism, but I remember when the TVA guys come and collect him at his birthday party and drag him back, and he's talking to the TVA guy and he's telling him, you're this special thing. You're special and you want to be part of a team. And look, there's the Avengers on the screen. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, in the middle of all that, when he's got Deadpool right where he wants him, he goes, because I am going to do a great thing and I'm going to these guys don't have the guts to do what I'm going to do and I'm going to change the world or whatever. Like the mustache just starts to twist by itself. And it's like, dude, you had him. Like what was that? He just decides to reveal his evil plan.
It's all ego.
Yeah. So, yes, I mean, honestly, plot wise, it's just like, I don't even know if you can even call it a plot, honestly.
I would have a hard time writing a summary of this movie other than Deadpool must resurrect Wolverine in order to save the universe from destruction. I mean, that's really all there is to it. As far as villains and schemes and details, it's a lot of gibberish.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I was so lost when all that happened, and I was confused by all that, and then I got lost and mesmerized by the action and the comedy. And I didn't care at that point what was going on with the storyline. I mean, looking back from and critiquing it, now I can complain about that kind of thing. But at the time, it was just like, wait, what? Oh, explosions, violence, funny, laughing, dick jokes, and it just worked. But now looking back, I'm like, yeah, there were some plot holes.
Yeah. Again, back to my earlier point about just how meta can a thing be before it stops being an actual story at this point. I mean, honestly, when he's telling him you are special for some reason. We had to rescue from your timeline, and you can join this timeline and stuff. I mean, at that point, they are quite literally just talking to the audience, saying, "Yeah, Fox is no more. We're just gonna pluck from Fox what we want and put them in the Marvel universe just because we say so." And that's, you know what I mean? Like, it was almost like they were doing this plot that was sort of a thin veil as to what was actually happening. And then he's saying the only other anchor guy was Logan because he was the most popular guy in the Fox universe, so we have to pluck him too. And again, like I said, it's so meta that they're just basically telling you that this is what this whole exercise is we're just pulling them out of this other, this world of Fox movies. You know what I mean?
It's true. They wrote a whole movie around that studio shakeup, moving the most valuable Fox superheroes into the MCU, and they wrote a comedy around that.
Yeah. And I'll even say this. I mean, in some ways, it was, and that's why I kind of liked all those other cameos with Elektra and Blade and stuff, because I kind of felt like that's when it started to feel like a love letter to Fox. Even, the end credits, by the way, where they were showing the clips from all of those other movies. I kind of thought that was sort of like, it was nice because that was kind of Marvel paying a little homage to all of those films or that they had done over there. That, they're not dead just because we're taking over this company, we're absorbing them, and we got our own thing going on. These were good films, so it was kind of like, it was nice to see them kind of nod a little bit,
Yeah, I felt the same way, being one that enjoyed the X-Men movies for a long time. It was nice to be remembered and be told by this movie, hey, we know there are people out there like you who liked those movies. They mean something to you. They meant something to us.
What did you guys think about the soundtrack?
Oh, I had a blast with it. I thought it was hilarious.
I'll tell you, there was a couple times when seriously, I must have walked around for like a couple of weeks after I saw this movie with Madonna stuck in my head. Like, I got Like a Prayer in my head because that was the background to like the cowl moment, and then the big fight after that. They played that throughout the whole thing, and I'm sort of laughing. It was like, I remember when I was watching it again recently, I'm chuckling to myself, and I'm trying to find, is there some meaning behind that particular choice of music that it works here? I don't know why. I don't know why they put these two things together, but I'm like, you know what? Whatever. It was almost like this whole concept was a Hail Mary, and that's why Like a Prayer is sort of. That's all I could think of. But I mean, that's it was pretty interesting. I mean, and I thought a lot of the music tracks that they use are pretty clever.
I've had Lady in Red stuck in my head because of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Sarah now knows that I know how to do the NSYNC dance.
Excellent.
That too, yeah.
But I compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy, where they're actually using, instead of just like theatrical music from a cinema, they're using actual like hit songs that everybody knows. And even though the song itself doesn't have any meaning to the scene, but it just works.
It's like a jukebox superhero movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. I felt like in Guardians, though, there was a little more, the songs worked and created a much more coherent artistic creation. Like when they happen in Guardians, I feel like I can almost, because like I'm Guardians to me was one of those comics that sort of existed in the 70s, and it was sort of like kind of around the time of like heavy metal comics, and like the Howard the Duck fits in there perfectly. All these kind of a little more edgy comics that existed in the 70s. So it all kind of worked for a reason. I felt like here they all work, but they're working because they're funny. I kind of felt like it had more. It was like the added music was a punchline. You know what I mean? And
the absurdity of the song that they're
yes.
Using. Okay, I see that. Yeah.
I am soaking wet right now.
All right, gentlemen, time to score this sucker. Kyle, what do you got?
I'm gonna give this one a 7. It's the only reason it didn't score any higher than that is because of what I said before. I'm just getting a little tired of the multiverse stuff, and I don't like to have to do homework when I go in and see a movie. I think a movie should be able to exist in a vacuum and reward people who do know the backstory a little bit. So I think it's a very solid movie. I laughed at all of the jokes. I enjoyed it both times I've seen it. I'll probably watch it again and still have a good time with it over a number of years. I'm not going to run out and watch it tomorrow, but yeah, this is a solid film, and I'd recommend it to people who are fans of these characters or of superhero movies in general.
I'm actually going to go pretty close to you, Kyle. I'm going with a 6.8 because I like my decimal points. It's definitely above average. It's not going to be my favorite film. Like you said, I laughed the whole time and it was great. I don't think it's going to hold up over time. There's going to be maybe call it 5, 6 years from now if I'm watching this movie with my kids or something. They're not going to get any of the jokes. I'll be laughing my ass off from the nostalgia factor, but that's not going to hold up, over time. So I liked it. It was funny. Action was awesome. Special effects, that was cool. Cameos, great, but it's just not a classic for me.
I think I think we're all basically on the same page with this one. I also went with a 7, and I kind of had the same sort of thought process in my head too, where I was thinking I wanted to be a little more generous, and I felt like I'm smiling the whole time, I'm chuckling. There's so many like badass cool moments in it. So I had nothing but fun with it. So I was kind of starting to lean towards an 8. Then I remembered, didn't I give Ocean's 11 an 8 last week? Yeah, we can't do that. I spent an hour last week talking about how flawless that movie is, and I gave it an 8. So I can't be that. This movie is entertainment, but to me, it was pure entertainment. I felt like all the jokes kind of landed. I was, maybe I'm the target audience for a lot of it, so I was, it just sort of worked for me. But yeah, I totally see what you guys are saying. I mean, it's not going to work for everybody. I think it's a good punctuation mark. The irony is that they keep talking about these movies as if they keep talking about Deadpool, and it's like they're trying to get him into the Marvel universe as if this is the beginning of a thing. I don't know that that's true. This might be the punctuation mark at the end of a trilogy, and I kind of feel like it works in that respect. But yeah, no, this is a solid 7 and good stuff for me. Which brings us to Who Asked You? Kyle, what's wrong with this movie? What would you change?
Ooh, I had 2. Well, I'm going to go with the plot, just because I found it kind of complicated, difficult to follow, and I realize that most people aren't watching this movie for an intricate, well-written plot. They're here to see action, and they're here to see humor, and they're here to see characters. But I needed a little bit more. I needed a little bit more story.
Oh, my Who Asked You has to be Hugh Jackman, returning as Wolverine. He knew what he was getting into. He had plenty of time to prepare for the role, and he just let himself go. I mean, flabby, just gross. I mean, the man it was horrendous. I mean, he had all this time to prepare. And no, he was an absolute fucking legend, obviously. Ripped beyond belief. I think I'll leave it at that. Hugh Jackman, do some fucking sit-ups or something. Come on, man.
I will go. So for my money, if I had one complaint about the movie, if there was one thing that to me was very much missing in this film, it was Vanessa. And I kind of felt like, I completely understand why she takes a back seat in this film, because this movie is a bromance. It's not a romance. So I get it. You're going to spend all of your time, with Wolverine and Deadpool. But yeah, I kind of felt like at the end of the day, when they kind of, they tell us throughout the film that he's kind of blowing it with her and all that stuff. And then at the end, there's a little glimmer, like it feels like they're going to get back together again. Yeah, okay. And again, I see why they did it. I see why it had to sort of be that way. But, again, if in the perfect world, I wish there was a way to sort of work her into the story a little bit more. But it is what it is. But that's the one thing I did sort of miss.
That's a fair criticism. She's one of my favorite characters in this series.
And for your consideration, give me some highlight, some spark that stands out for you guys.
Well, Ray stole mine, and it's Hugh Jackman. Just seeing him in this part, it's where he belongs. Yes, he should be playing this part until he's 90. He was born to play Wolverine. He seems to enjoy it. He's good at it, and I enjoy every time I see him play this role.
For me, it's got to be Gambit, Channing Tatum.
Nice.
I loved the banter between Deadpool and him, just making fun of the accent. Nobody understands what he's saying. He deserved a role in a movie, and he's the perfect actor to play him. He nailed it. The action sequences with him were fantastic with the cards and his staff. I think he was the highlight for me, and bringing Blade back, Wesley Snipes as Blade. Screw that TV show. It's Wesley Snipes will always be Blade for me.
For me, the standout moment for me had to be the cowl moment when he pulled the cowl mask
Nice.
on. I mean, and I swear I'm not exaggerating when I say I must have watched that little clip, the little bootleg clip that somebody put on YouTube for like 100 times after that. I'm in the shower singing Like a Prayer for some reason. I'm like, why is it stuck in my head? Oh yeah, because of that. Yeah, I mean, it's you're talking about just 20 years of wanting to see that happen, and it was when it finally happened. And at that point in the film, when the first time I had seen it, I think I was actually surprised by it because I saw it early enough that nothing got spoiled for me, so I didn't. And this is like the end of the movie, so I'm not even thinking that they're gonna do that. I just figured that costume that he's wearing that's all we get. So when that finally happened, I was just like, what? Are you serious? I mean, I was just losing my mind. So yeah, that was it. That was the part that just got me. And I was just, chef's kiss.
This is what I'm talking about. Big slow motion action sequence. Who knows if you live or die? Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
Gentlemen, I think that is Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that's another podcast in that we finished. I fucked that up.
I think we're going to break some hearts with this one.
I agree. All right, gentlemen, thank you for another podcast, and I will see you both here next week.
See you then.
It's been fun. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. You can also find our episodes on our YouTube channel. Check the link in the description. All clips in this podcast are for commentary and critique and are considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Want to do some cocaine?
Hey, cocaine is the one thing that Feige said is off limits.
What about Bolivian marching powder?
They know all the slang terms. They have a list.
Even snowboarding?
Even disco dust.
White girl interrupted?
Even force bump.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yes!